number of local governments in Japan have been requesting LGBT equal recognition for civil marriage, as has happened in many countries now. I believe UK has done it, Australia's debating it, I think New Zealand has it, that people can get married, if not in religious services, at least in civil, secular services, people can get married who are LGBT. And within Japan, Shibuya Ward, a number of local governments have started to recognize this. And there's enough momentum behind this now that various wards and local governments are basically taking the lead on this. And in Japan, there's no Christian religious stigma against the idea of the idea that being gay is inherently sinful doesn't really exist, except for basically, I guess, Muslims and Catholics and Christians and Jews and Abrahamic religious people, which exist in Japan but in very small numbers. So generally speaking, within Japanese society, there isn't an inherent stigma of self-righteous, entitlement to persecute LGBT like we have in Christian-based cultures in Western countries. So it's kind of funny, if you look through Japanese literature and history and movies, at times when these sort of LGBT themes would have been very controversial, they've always been kind of matter of fact in Japanese culture. It's never been considered that strange. It's not normal per se, but it's not that strange that a hero might also have a lover who's a sidekick. I mean, all the jokes that we make about Batman and Robin in the Japanese context were totally, yeah, sure, of course, whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that sort of thing. And so this is the thing that I like about Japan. So it's not a great big step. It doesn't threaten people's religious values or their feeling of entitlement to persecute others in Japan to do this. So it's happening fairly naturally that people are recognizing marriage rights. However, that said, Japan's constitution and civil code is still based on the 19th century Prussian civil code, the legal code, and Victorian morality, both of which are very much incompatible with these sorts of things. So it does require a constitutional amendment. At the moment, at least at a national level, there's not a recognition of the entitlement of LGBT people to marry. So a number of same-sex couples have taken a case to I believe the Supreme Court to recognize a constitutional review of their entitlement everywhere to be that this can happen still, that under the Constitution, technically, a civil marriage done in Shibuya legally could be rendered invalid, and they want to basically remove that barrier and get equal rights, basically, for example, for accommodation, for work benefits, for social welfare, all these sorts of things, all these sort of benefits that you get from spousal rights, which are basically civil rights in Japan. There's no idea of marriage being a religious concept in Japan. Well, at least not for the most part, apart from the ceremony might be quasi-religious, but it's basically a civil arrangement. It's a societal arrangement about the idea. It's still centered on the idea of families, but certainly in terms of civil rights and in terms of the fact that the population is going down and it's becoming much more normal for couples that are heterosexual to not have children. It really makes it really look like there's no difference anymore between same-sex or mixed-sex couples. So there's a case that's going to the Supreme Court, and it'll be interesting to see if that succeeds. However, as you would expect, the gateholders of Japanese traditional values, the octogenarians of the Liberal Democratic Party so-called that because it is neither liberal nor democratic, somebody went and made an inevitable statement the other day. Now this guy is Jiminto Hirazawa. I'm terrible with reading first names. There's a bunch of ways you can read that. So basically, Hirazawa, upper house member, has pointed out that we should think about this. If everyone becomes LGBT, the whole country is just going to come to an end. He's saying LGBT ばかりになったら国が潰れる. So his fear is that if we recognize LGBT marriages, everybody's just going to voluntarily become LGBT, and then there won't be any more children, and the country's going to come to an end. I don't know if he's afraid that legalizing this is going to make him gay. And this is actually, it's kind of funny, even in the debate in countries like Australia, where you have very, very, religious bigotry associated with it. Even in Japan, it's not religious bigotry that's associated with it, but it is the same paranoia that, if I recognize LGBT marriage, maybe I'll be LGBT. I mean, why it does always happen that people with rights are always so afraid or reluctant to give other people rights, worried that it might somehow impact them negatively to give other people the same rights, equality that they enjoy, but yes, it's got the full statement further down actually, which it follows on from other critiques by other LDP members that were also roundly condemned, saying that LGBT couples are not productive, i.e. they can't make children and that the country needs children. But yes, I'm still waiting for your forced gay marriage there in Australia. Well, believe me, I was in Queensland recently, and everyone there seems pretty certain that it's coming, and they're terrified. But yes, so the whole statement that he said, the full statement. Let me give it to you in Japanese and English. LGBT で同性婚で男と男、女と女と結婚。これは批判したら変なことになるからいいんですよ。もちろんいいんですよ。でもこの人 LGBT この人たちばかりになったら国が潰れるんでしょう。This is such an 88-year-old comment. You do have to love it. So it's basically so we're talking here about LGBT same-sex people, men and men and women marrying. Now, if I criticize that, of course, it's all going to get all weird. So, of course, that's totally fine. It's totally fine. But let's just bear in mind, if everybody becomes LGBT, then the whole country is going to collapse. This was his brain fart that he had in a public press conference, which I'm sure he's very proud of. I mean, the man has a point. Of course, if everybody becomes LGBT, theoretically, people will stop reproducing, and within 60 years, the country will cease to exist. However, bear in mind that recognition and equality for LGBT does not equate to mandatorily forcing everyone to become LGBT. How does this happen? It seems to happen in every country that this debate comes up. People are afraid that recognizing equal rights for these other people that don't have access to those rights does not mean that you have to become like them. But yes, anyway, it's that is what Hirozawa Sangin Ging said, and that was kind of funny.